Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 92, featuring the top 5 buzzer beaters. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we've got the ultimate countdown show for you, as we are basically counting down our favorite counting down moments, and we're calling it our top 5 buzzer beaters.
Warning, warp core field breach. Engine room will be sealed in 10 seconds. Evacuate immediately.
It's a show about all those last second moments in Trek where someone's having to save the day by just barely beating the clock, or an anomaly, or some auto self-destruct just in the nick of time. Could be anything, really. So we're open to that. We're also open to just other tense last second situations depending on your Prime Directive and how you want to define it. So basically just last second save the day heroics kind of thing. And for this great topic, we have a couple of great guests to introduce you to. First up, returning for the umpteenth time, I've lost count, on TrekRanks, it's Alexander Perry. Welcome back, Alex.
Hello, Jim. Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to have you back on, my friend. And our second guest today is someone we've been interacting with on Twitter for a while now, and she's an awesome Trekkie, and we're excited to get her on the show finally. Coming to us live from the Wisconsin Expanse in the USA sector, it's Abby Sommer. Welcome to TrekRanks, Abby.
Hello, I am so thrilled to be part of one of my very favorite podcasts.
I am excited to have you on, so we're going to start right off with our first-time guest, Abby, to get our Trek origin story. So what's your Trek backstory, and how'd you get into Trek, and are you a completist? What's your favorite series? I have so many questions.
I am a completist. I was introduced to Star Trek by my dad when I was little. He was kind of a casual Star Trek fan, but an overall sci-fi fan. And then the more that I got into Star Trek, the more that he watched with me. And the very first episode I can remember watching was The Royale, which is kind of a weird one to come into first. The spinning door and all of the references that I didn't quite get because I was very young, but I was absolutely fascinated by Data. And it hooked me in, and I hooked my best friend at the time in, and we obsessively watched during that golden age of TNG and DS9 and Voyager. A lot of times it was on school nights, and we were so obsessed, we would sit with notebooks and take notes during the episodes and then call each other as soon as the episode was done and compare notes, because we just had to get it out about how much we loved it. We watched every episode in syndication and on repeats over and over with our reference books next to us. We went to conventions. We started a ship at our high school, all that good Trekkie stuff. And I have just kind of continued since then. I had a hard time catching all of Voyager when I was in college because it kept changing times and nights, and baseball would preempt it, and VCRs were definitely not reliable back then. But thanks to syndication and Friends tapes and Blockbuster, I kept up, and I converted some friends in college with Enterprise then, and now I'm doing rewatches with all of them with my husband, and he's really into the new ones with me. I'm dying to do more stuff in person with people whenever we can be with people again, but I've got 2 young daughters, so that's not as feasible these days. So I do a lot online and with Twitter and with my fan friends, and I just converted 2 new coworkers last year with Discovery, so spreading the love of Star Trek.
That is awesome. I love that your old school chat room, that you took notes and then would call your friends to talk about it after it aired.
Oh, yeah. I remember when Blue Alert was the first thing from Voyager and our episode notes, and we both picked up the phone and went, Blue Alert! And yeah, that's the kind of nerds we are. It's
they
great.
Landed the ship. That is,
I know.
That is so cool. And okay, so if you had to pick today, what's your favorite series?
Oh, that is the hardest question, because it all depends on what kind of day I'm having. My comfort food, I think, is just always TNG. But I do really think that DS9 has been helping me through a lot of the stress of the world lately. And I have a super soft spot for Enterprise. Like, I really enjoyed those characters and a lot of those stories, and I really was disappointed when it got cut off at only 4 seasons, because I think they had a lot of road ahead they could have done a lot of good with.
That is the perfect TrekRanks answer. TNG, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise. That's my favorite series. Well done. Okay, let's jump into our TrekRanks recalibration.
Identity confirmed. Auto-destruct sequence armed.
Set the countdown for 10 minutes from my mark. Authorization, Cisco 1-5. Destruct. Mark.
Sequence initiated. Auto-destruct in 9 minutes, 55 seconds.
First up, as regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 here at the TrekRanks podcast, that we love Trek and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just an excuse to talk about Star Trek. And as our good friend, the Vulcan Master, likes to remind us each week, our main driver for all of our discussion here at the TrekRanks podcast is
Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things we love about Star Trek, and we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Short Trek, Star Trek Picard, and Lower Decks as well. Lower Decks is on the table.
Black alert. Black alert.
And one final reminder that we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Interface, net access, channel 90.
And you can find TrekRanks on the net access interface links at trekranks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, so to wrap it up, Alex and Abby, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface. Alex.
You can find me on Twitter at Alexander T. Perry, and you can also find my show also right here on the Trek Order Transmissions, which is Weekly Trek, which is a weekly 30-minute news show at Weekly Trek.
Your source for all the news that's fit to scroll on a pad. Abby, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Abby M. Sommer. That's SOMMER, and I'm on there a bazillion times a day.
Abby is an awesome Star Trek follow, everybody. Do it. Okay, let's jump in. Oh, no, we are skipping our diagnostic cycle this week, and we're jumping straight into our Prime Directives.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, so Alex and Abby, lots of ways to approach this topic, which honestly I think is one of the great tropes in any kind of TV and film storytelling. When you think about it, we have all literally watched thousands of buzzer beater countdowns where our heroes just barely escape disaster. It happens all over TV and movies. So, Alex, let's start with you, man. How did you define your Prime Directive and finalize your picks?
I had 3 conditions for developing my list. One, which, unless we're doing a specific series topic, I always try and do for mine, which is no repeat shows. So it's 5 different iterations of Star Trek. 2, for this one, I wanted my buzzer beaters to all be life or death scenarios. So they are all life or death picks. And 3, given that the first few that came into my mind were all from the movies, and actually once I went back and started thinking about it, a lot of movies could have made it onto the list. I made the decision to eliminate movies as pickable picks for my list. So 5 different iterations of Star Trek, life or death situations, no movies.
Wow, a lot of criteria there. I like the life or death. I did not think of that, although I'm pretty sure most of mine probably end up in that category anyway. Abby, how about you?
I was a little bit similar in Alex, as I made sure that it was also a life and death situation. But the thing that jumped out to me immediately was that as much as it kills me, I have to take out the episodes that involve time travel or temporal loops or universe resets or any of that, because that could be its own show. I mean, just off the top of my head, I had Switch Much Sweet Sorrow 2, 0 Hour, All Good Things, Timeless, Cause and Effect. But is it really a buzzer beater if you're messing with time to save the day?
Yep.
So I just took that out, all those out. But it could be any action or inspiration of someone or a technological solution that just beat that buzzer.
Okay. Eliminating temporal. That's another interesting criteria. I'm not sure where mine fits on that. I bet I have something. Okay, so I did my normal. I brainstormed a long list of contenders, and then I thought of a whole bunch of different qualifiers that I thought would help me narrow down my list. Like I considered it had to be an actual computer countdown scenario to make my list, and I considered like only episodes that included multiple buzzer beaters because I had a few of those. But in the end, I didn't like any of those qualifiers because they were eliminating picks that I wanted to include. So I eliminated them all, picked my 5 favorite, and they have a little bit of everything. So I have a couple of multiple buzzer beaters and a few dramatic computer countdowns, and I might even have a temporal, and I don't think I have a movie. Okay, that's too much of a spoiler. All right, I got a lot of secondary systems, that's for sure.
Auto-destruct in 6 minutes.
I wanted to pick more than 5 for this topic, as much as any topic we've ever done. I know this is going to be a super fun one. Let's get into it. Third Automaticon, introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Automaticon, and as always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our top 5 buzzer beater and the specific episode in which it appeared and why we're highlighting it. And then at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Alex, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 buzzer beater Trek moment episode?
Okay, so 5-word summary. This treaty is in abeyance. Hashtag I nominate the Grisellans. This is Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 2, The Ensigns of Command.
Wow.
So picture it.
That's a good one.
That's good.
You've got Data down on the planet. You've got the Enterprise up in orbit. The Sheliak corporate ship is approaching and has said it will sterilize the planet of existing human life when it arrives so they can colonize it with the Sheliak. And try as they might, they just cannot come up with a way of getting the 3 weeks necessary for the transport ships to arrive so they can evacuate the colonists until, and this is why this is the perfect Star Trek buzzer beater, because it's about legalese in a treaty,
yeah,
right? Like,
so good, yeah.
In the rest of my list, I've got others, where it's like shoot 'em ups and techie stuff. This one is pure like diplomacy politics, and I love this scene where after getting kicked around all episode by the Sheliak, who just constantly are parroting legalese at him, and no, we can't do this because of clause 10, subsection 12, paragraph 3. Picard finally gets the upper hand. He hits him with his solution, which is there's a mediation clause in the treaty, and he is going to activate the mediation clause, and he can nominate a third party, and he's nominating this species, the Grisellans, who are in hibernation, which means they'll have to wait 6 months, or they can have 3 weeks, and the Sheliak eventually freak out and agree to give him the 3 weeks. It's one of the funniest scenes in early Next Generation, and I had to pick it.
Oh my God, I love this pick. Absolutely brilliant deep cut selection. This is a totally underrated episode. I love the legalese of the angle of your pick. I always wish that Picard had said, "No, it's 6 months. We're waiting for the Grisellas," instead of giving them the 3 weeks too. But the whole moment with Picard sticking it to him is absolutely one of the best, and it's so defining of the way TNG was and did things by having meetings and talking through solutions. I love this pick. It's an awesome out of the box buzzer beater. Abby, what's your take on it?
I love this pick too. I nominate the Grisellans is a absolutely perfect thing to hear and go, oh yeah. And it's seared in my mind, that look of Picard staring at that shiny Shellyak and just being like, aha. So how do you feel about that? So this is a perfect buzzer beater. And I agree, the legalese way to get out of it is really cool.
Yeah, it's spectacular. I was thinking this might be the first ever instance of command reference on Trek, but I just looked it up and it was in our top 5 data episodes, which makes a lot of sense.
So, for sure.
Our buddy Jeff Hewlett picked it. Okay, Abby, let's go to you. What is your number 5 pick?
All right. My number 5 pick, my hashtag is Something Wrong with the Universe. And it's Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 5, Remember Me.
Yes.
This is one of the ones that I thought of right away when you gave me this topic, because what could be more of a buzzer beater than the universe literally collapsing around you as it goes? And I always enjoyed this episode because it is Beverly Crusher's thoughts that make the warp bubble have this collapsing aspect. But it's also Beverly Crusher who spends the last probably 3 to 4 minutes that she has in this bubble talking it out and figuring it out. And she even bests the computer when she asks, what's the nature of the universe? And it can't answer. And I really liked seeing that, how we all know she's smart, but to see her work through this and put all the pieces together was always fun. And I also think it's always a good one when she pops out of the static warp bubble and then she looks around and she says, oh, was that you, the Traveler? And there's Wesley just collapsed on the panel. So he also was the buzzer beater on his end, finally tapping into all of his potential. And while he wasn't always my favorite character, he did like to save the day. So I felt like he had to be on this list.
The Traveler's basically just a walking buzzer beater. I love that guy. I love this pick. Remember Me, such an awesome, original, clever episode and so popular. Literally, this is the universe imploding around you on yourself. That's about as close as it gets if you don't beat the buzzer. Alex, what's your take on it?
Man, it's so creepy. It's before she figures it out and people are disappearing and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and what is going on? It's a very evocative episode in that way. And I think this is a great pick. It's that final scene when she's almost getting sucked out of the bridge and then decides to go through with it. It's a cool episode and a great pick.
All right, so we started with 2 TNG episodes. I will close out round 5 with my pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Big Chair Hoshi's buzzer beater. Hashtag Terra Prime Forever. And my pick is Enterprise Season 4, Terra Prime, and it's Hoshi's cat and mouse with Paxton. And I'm not sure why I thought of this when she was in charge of this is when she was basically captain of the Enterprise. And it came to me right away. And I thought, well, maybe I'll find some better ones. But I just really love this as a buzzer beater moment because I just really enjoyed the tension that Hoshi was faced with. She was basically told, if you don't hear from Archer by X timeline, you need to blow that base off of Mars, the array that Paxton had moved. And Samuels, of course, is on the bridge telling her that, hey, Archer's mission's failed, so you need to fire now. And she's standing up to him and saying, no, we're not going to do it. And by the way, it's going to take 2 minutes for them to power up this array, so we are going to monitor this thing until they start powering it up. And he threatens to relieve her. She won't let him do it. So, of course, right after that, the array starts powering up, and she still hasn't heard from Archer. So now she literally only has 2 minutes and has to start moving in. But at the last second, we hear from Archer, who has got into Paxton's office and took control and signals her. And this is one of my bonus buzzer beaters because, of course, right after that, Archer's fighting with Paxton, and there's a big computer countdown. They're going to fire this array at San Francisco. And Archer does not beat the buzzer. He loses. They fire the array. But fortunately, Tucker has changed the targeting mechanism, so it misses San Francisco, and everyone's safe. And I don't know why I thought of this, but I just love this moment with Hoshi in the captain's chair of the Enterprise beating the buzzer. And Alex, what's your take on Terra Prime?
I mean, what a great series finale for Enterprise, right? I mean, the very last episode of the series, you have Hoshi in the captain's chair, and a really great, I mean, in all serious, penultimate episode of the series. But it's actually such a nice capping off point, because the second episode of the series was one in which Hoshi wasn't even sure she wanted to be there. Yeah. And then in the penultimate episode of the series, you have her in the captain's chair. She didn't think she liked the rest of her colleagues in that second episode. Now, she trusts them so much, she's willing to sort of shout down the, I guess he's the Prime Minister of Earth. It's never really clarified exactly who Samuels is. But yeah, it's a great pick.
Yeah, I just love that tension with Hoshi waiting for Archer. Abby, what's your take on it?
This is one of my favorite episodes of Enterprise, even though it gets me in the feels every single time.
Oh, yeah.
I really love Hoshi's arc. And I've always said, I think what they could have done with her with 3 more seasons would have been incredible, because she grew almost more than anyone else in any other series. And her bravery and the steel that she pulls from in some of these last episodes are just awesome. And the back and forth between, being on Mars and being back on the ship is a really cool way to end that.
Yeah, I think you said that so well. I think Hoshi's arc is fantastic. And yeah, we can always point and say, they could have done more with her. But I really love her character. And I think that what Alex, you said, episode 2 to the second to last episode showed a lot for Hoshi. All right, let's go to round 4. Abby, Alex, what's your number 4 pick?
I'll start off by apologizing, because I actually picked this on my last appearance on TrekRanks also.
Repeats are fine, and
it is my favorite moment in 2020 Star Trek, so I'm going for it. 5-word summary: an old friend's surprise visit. # I've got a fleet of them at my back. This is Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 10, Et in Arcadia Ego Part 2, and the arrival of the Federation fleet at the critical moment right before the Romulan fleet was about to kill Picard and kill all of the people on the planet.
I should have known you were going to pick this.
I just love this moment. Of all of the Star Trek we've had since 2017, I think this was my sort of favorite, biggest payoff moment of any of those episodes, whether Discovery or Picard. I mean, seeing Riker back in a Starfleet uniform on the bridge of the ship, particularly since, they had like vaguely hinted that maybe he would come back in the season, but you had your Riker episode earlier on in the season, and he very much was not wearing a Starfleet uniform at the time. So to get that kind of fist pump moment of the Federation fleet finally arrives again, which you've not seen a lot of Starfleet during the season. And now you finally get hit with it. You get all these ships, and they're led by one of our favorite characters, certainly one of my favorite characters. This, for me, is a classic buzzer beater, fist pump, get out of your chair, moment of culminating the story of the season of Star Trek Picard Season 1.
Their flagship is hailing us.
Acting Captain Will Riker in command of the USS Zheng He.
And
it is my duty to inform you that the United Federation of Planets has designated planet Julian 4 in the Vite sector as under the protection of Starfleet, according to the terms of the Treaty of Algeron.
too late. Our claim to this world takes precedence. Move aside.
Raytheon.
I have a priority request to open diplomatic negotiations and protection for the inhabitants of Gurleon 4.
General or Commodore, or whatever you're calling yourself, right now I'm on the bridge of the toughest, fastest, most powerful ship Starfleet has ever put into service. And I've got a fleet of them at my back. We've got our phasers locked on your warp cores. And nothing would make me happier than you giving me an excuse to kick your treacherous Talsiar ass. But instead, I'm going to ask you one time to stand down.
General, your orders.
Retarget weapon systems. Prepare to fight.
Huge moment. I love it. Picard is on the board. Abby, what's your take on this?
Well, I have to agree with Alex. When I watched that episode the first time, I literally went, yes, when that happened. And my husband was watching with me, and he just shakes his head and laughs at me. But when you see that happen, you kind of feel like, yes, okay, all is right with the universe now. And it's that immense satisfaction of all the buildup. And even though I had been semi-spoiled by seeing Jonathan Frakes' name in the opening credits, and I knew he was going to be in there somewhere, he was going to be on one of those ships.
Yep.
So it was just delightful to see Riker and to see him in a captain's chair and just verbally sparring back and forth with O, and it was amazing. So great pick.
I mean, the moment is absolutely epic. Such a great finale for that first season. And it's so funny you said that about the spoiler. I think that was the only time I wasn't spoiled by a big appearance, because all the other ones had caught me, and this one I was like, I'm not watching the opening credits.
Same thing.
For this one. The other ones had snuck up on me. So it's so cool. I mean, to see Riker again in command of a ship like that, absolutely incredible. Abby, how about you? What's your number 4 pick?
All right, my number 4 pick, hashtag even Ducat can't beam out. And it's DS9 Season 3, Episode 7, Civil Defense.
Oh, this was on my secondary systems. I definitely considered it.
This is such a fun episode because, it starts off with O'Brien and Jake being just annoyed at the Cardassian station, which is a constant. So you don't expect it to go from 0 to 100 as fast as it does. And they trip the system, and suddenly there's an insurrection, and you hear Ducat, and it just spirals from there. And everything they think they can do is another failure, or it shortens the countdown, or it adds force field.
Wait a minute.
Unauthorized computer entry detected in Ore Processing Unit 5. Enter access code. Incorrect code. You have 5 seconds to enter correct access code.
Or what? Oh, I don't know. I better stop it.
Warning. Worker revolt in progress in Ore Processing Unit 5. Security countermeasures initiated.
What the hell?
Bajoran workers, your attention, please. Your attempt to seize control of this facility is going to fail. You are valuable workers, and we wish you no harm. However, if you do not return control of this unit to your Cardassian supervisors, we will be forced to take action. You have 8 minutes to make your decision.
And it's really fun that you have all of our major players kind of stuck in separate locations, trying to do what they can, even if they can't talk to each other. And then when you get Garrick and Ducat in the same place, it's just magic. And I really liked that a few of the times Kira tried to solve this by blowing stuff up because it was so in character. And then it comes all the way down to the end with our heroic Captain Sisko, finally getting those last little isolinear chips in the right spot and saving the day, while at the same time, Jake is dragging O'Brien out of the fire in the Jeffries tube. So it's perfect. All those dual layers working on top of each other.
Of all those multiple buzzer beater episodes, this one might have the most. I mean, there are so many countdowns and like deadlines and changes. And even at the end, there's 2 big buzzer beaters with Jake saving Miles, and that scene with Sisko. This is why I consider picking it. I love just how engaged Avery Brooks is. He's just like moving stuff around. He's just like, everything's going on. The computer's counting down. And then at the very end, when he just kind of throws the isolinear rod in the air and catches it, it's like, woo! I love that moment. So good.
Well, and I really like how this episode, the director made a ton of different shots that you don't normally see. So everything felt small and tight and confined, and it added to that feeling of intensity because you're getting shots from under things and over things and around things and close-ups of people's faces as they huddle under consoles, and that just added to the whole tension of the episode.
I'm so glad you said that, because I actually noticed that I rewatched this as for research for this, because I definitely considered picking it. Like the opening shot of the whole show is of the kind of processing unit that they get stuck in. It's amazing, that set, and it's like this really distant shot from a corner of it that really encapsulates the whole set. And then there's a bunch of great shots of Ops, just like you said, looking up and looking down. Really, really well shot. I wonder who directed it. I don't know. Alex, how about you, man? What's your take on Civil Defense?
I mean, this is one of my most favorite episodes in all of Deep Space Nine. And the episode has literally everything. I mean, it's got great Quark and Odo. It's got great Garak. It's got great Dukat. It's got great Ben Sisko, Jake Sisko. It ends with, a solid countdown. It's got lots of great character stuff, as they're playing that out over the course of the episode. It's funny. It's exciting. It's great. I love Civil Defense.
Yeah, there's so much happening in this episode. It's a classic. Okay, let's close out round 4 with my pick. I got a little bit of a deep cut, I think. Maybe, who knows. 5 words and a hashtag. Manheim Effect never gets old. Hashtag 3 datas combined for ultimate buzzer beater. And it will always have Paris from TNG season 1. And it's when Data drops that antimatter to beat the Manheim Effect. I've always said, I've picked this before on TrekRanks, it's an underrated episode. It's actually, the Manheim Effect stuff is really top-notch sci-fi stuff happening in this season 1 episode of TNG. It could easily be a plot point in later seasons that people, I think, would rave about it. I chose this for scenes in a turbolift just because of that. And the scene in the lab with the Manheim Effect and the time distortion when Data walks in and there's these, like, the sound production there's like these chimes and the lighting is super cool, and all of a sudden there's 3 datas, and Data basically says, okay, I got to figure this out, Geordi. I need a 27-second countdown, and you've got the countdown and like all the different numbers, and at the last second there's like multiple countdowns happening at once, and then the 3 datas are walking toward the thing, and of course the one in the middle says, it's me, I gotta do it, and he lets it go, and it's like 3, 3, 2, 2, and I'll go. I'm gonna play it for you right now.
Begin countdown on my mark.
25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20.
There appears to be 3 of us. Should I drop the antimatter or wait for one of you? Only one of us is in the correct time continuum. Which one? Me. It's me.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Victor? Report, are you all right?
Yes, sir.
Is it closed?
It is well patched, sir. Closed indicates a permanent condition, which I cannot guarantee.
That was awesome. I love that moment. The Manheim Effect, the underrated, will always have Paris. Alex, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, this is fun because it's, mostly when you think about the episode, you think about the Picard storyline rather than the sci-fi sort of time effects one. And when you're thinking about late season 1, I mean, this episode is sort of wedged between Skin of Evil, which obviously is extremely famous for being the episode where Tasha Yar dies, and then Conspiracy on the other side of it. In many people's opinion, the best episode of season 1 of The Next Generation. So yeah, this is a little gem that sort of gets overlooked. But yeah, that's a cool scene, and it's a great pick.
Yep. Abby, how about you?
This was on my secondary systems. Awesome. I thought about this one too, and it's exactly what you said with the Manheim Effect and the time distortions and the 3 datas, and the countdown is repeated within the countdown, which is just the most perfect buzzer beater that you could ever have. And it really is one of the first times that you see some of these characters get a little bit more development outside of just kind of the action and the basics that was the first part of TNG season 1. So I really enjoy this episode as well.
Yeah, you said it well, Alex. I think I defend the Picard stuff. I like that Picard stuff that's going on in this episode, but I can see if somebody doesn't really engage with it. But the rest of it, the sci-fi, the Manheim stuff is just super, super strong. Okay, let's go to the soup round.
And now, as I'm sure that somebody out there has said, it's time to pay for the soup.
Abby, what's your number 3 pick?
All right. I'm so excited to be part of the soup round. I only wish I had soup. But my number 3 is hashtag it'll be installed on Tuesday. And it's from Star Trek Generations, with Kirk going down on the Enterprise B to rid the deflector and to push them out from being destroyed by the Nexus. Now, this almost cheated my Prime Directive because technically he got sucked into the Nexus and there was a little time travel there, but I was thinking about it as the Enterprise B itself was saved.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Well, this was the one I back and forth on over and over and over again. And this was the first movie that I got to see in the theater, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I didn't even drive yet and somehow managed to get myself to this movie 3 times. And just remember the awe of that scene when I'm watching it on the big screen and the surround sound, and knowing that Kirk was going to die in this movie, but not sure if this was really it. And going, wait a minute, he didn't meet Patrick Stewart yet. We can't do that. So it just always gets me. And I love the whole idea that they sent the starship out without half the things that it needed. And everything's coming on Tuesday. That's been a joke in my life for decades. I couldn't take it off the list.
That scene just is so grand and epic. Just felt like a major motion picture the first 15 minutes of this film with all that happening.
And the music is phenomenal. The scoring of this movie, when I went back to watch it to get ready for this episode taping, I forgotten how much I enjoy the music in the background. It just is so perfect that whole way through. But that scene in particular, just the crescendo of the music and everything just comes together really well.
All right. Well, since I went out of order and I went to Abby instead of Alex, Alex, I know you don't really like this movie, so
excuse me.
Alex, what is your take on Generations? One of your favorite movies, which is awesome.
I am a huge defender of this movie, and the opening scene is so good. The dynamics between the characters, the propulsive action of it. I mean, it really does kind of, kick you right in the gear in this movie. Shockingly, it didn't occur to me to pick this. My mind, for some reason, when I was doing my list, was very much focused on buzzer beaters at the end of the episode, but this is one that happens like right within the first 20 minutes of the movie, and it just kind of like comes out of nowhere. And hit you with it. I love this scene, and again, just like the civil defense scene, you've got Kirk and he's kind of moving things around and he's climbing ladders and, the ship is shaking and there's things happening. You're cutting between him and deflector control and the bridge where they're trying to save people and beam them out. It's so good. Abby, I'm so glad you picked this. You've become one of my favorite people.
Well, thank you. The feeling is mutual.
That's an amazing pick, and you described it very well there, Alex. That's what I was talking. It's just the first 15 minutes of this just feels so epic. Okay, Alex, let's go back to you. I don't think I've ever done that before, but went out of order, and we love it. So, Alex, how about you? What is your number 3 super round pick?
Okay. I'm playing to the gallery on this one. 5-word summary. Lon Suda saves the day. Hashtag kill those Kazons.
Yes.
This is Star Trek Voyager, Season 3, Episode 1, Basics, Part 2.
Such a good choice.
Oh, yes. The scene in which Suda storms engineering, subdues everyone in just a lightning orgy of violence, which he felt awful about, I'm sure.
For sure.
And he has finished kind of killing all of these Kazons, and he has this thing he needs to do, which is, he needs to set the phasers so they overload. So once the Talaxians attack and Voyager tries to shoot them, it'll cause a phaser overload that will basically incapacitate all of the Kazons on the ship and they can retake it. And he's just finished killing, he thinks he's finished killing everybody in the engineering, and he drops his Kazon disruptor rifle on the ground and just sort of takes a moment to collect himself. But in that moment, one of these Kazons who is not dead pulls out his little pistol and shoots him in the back. And as Suda sort of is dying and falling on the ground, he just manages to reach out onto the panel and tap the control he needs to get it all set up so that the rest of the episode can play out and Voyager can be retaken. I mean, it's just a great ending to this mini character arc that just played itself out over the course of 3 episodes. Suda, had to grapple with being quite a monster and then getting some perspective on that and, becoming a better person, but then being forced to sort of return to his kind of old ways in order to save the ship and serve the higher good. And it's just such an effective character arc, and it ends on a buzzer beater.
I mean, a literal buzzer beater where he has to just push the button, the classic trope where he's dying and just has to reach up over the console and push the button. I love it. I love Lon Suter. I love this whole arc of his from Meld through Basics Part 2. Brad Dourif, amazing actor, incredible character. Abby, what's your take on Basics Part 2?
This is a fantastic pick. I also love Suter. I thought for a character that has such little screen time, how much we saw the growth and the change in him. And this was the perfect way to go out. I mean, just saving the ship that had saved him. And it's just lovely. And that moment with the panel just gets you every time.
Every time. I love the moment from this episode where he first shows up to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, I'm sure that you're thinking about this as a moment to escape. And he's just like, no, I just don't want to have to go back into my old ways, as Alex said. Amazing. Okay, let's close out the soup round with my number 3 pick. It is another double buzzer beater. I've got 5 words and a hashtag. Double blast of Xindi buzzer beaters. Hashtag, then give me 10 seconds. It is Enterprise Season 3, the finale, 0 Hour. I love this episode. I always knew I was going to pick this as soon as this topic came up. So I've got Trip's Heroics, destroy the sphere, and then the bonus is Archer destroying the Xindi weapons. So it's a double buzzer beater special, but my main pick is Trip's Heroics here when the NX-01 has to go into the sphere builder's trans-dimensional disturbance around Sphere 41. Is that whole setup is just awesome, and they figure out that if they take down this one sphere, it's going to bring down the whole network. And the whole thing is just this massive buzzer beater galore. So Phlox has told them that they have a hard 15 minutes max so they can survive inside this trans-dimensional space. Then the sphere builders show up and they're fighting them. But the big buzzer beater moment comes when Trip is trying to fire this disruptive pulse at the sphere, and he says he needs a minute, and Phlox says, you don't have a minute, and Trip says, then give me 10 seconds. I'm telling you, I got this. And after that, Phlox is like, time's up, and Trip just says, it sure is. And he hits the pulse, and all the spheres start imploding on each other. It's an amazing, dramatic, cool, underrated moment in this episode that most people are thinking about what's happening on the Xindi weapon and the Xindi ship, and that stuff's all awesome, but I think this is really underrated. And of course, then you've got, and Alex, I just heard you talking about this on your Snaptrack, but
me too.
You can't beat Archer's one-on-one fight with Dullum at the end when he blows him up and then has the hero shot running down the platform as the Xindi weapon explodes around him. 2 big-time buzzer beaters in 0 Hour. No way I wasn't going to pick it. I love it. Abby, what's your take on 0 Hour?
I'd say any episode where you get to see that classic Archer shot with the explosions behind him and the spheres crumple like tinfoil balls is fantastic. The only reason this isn't on my list is because I did say, well, no time travel, and they pulled him out to the crazy alien Nazis right at the end. So I had already cheated once, and I had too many other choices. But this is probably, it's named 0 Hour. It's got a countdown in the title, so it's
good
perfect.
Point. That's a good point, and I love that description of the crumpled tinfoil balls. Alex, what's your take on 0 Hour?
Such a huge finale, and I love those dynamics on the bridge where you've got Phlox on one side at the tactical station and Tucker on the other at the engineering station, and Phlox is like really riding him hard, and he's really pushing back, and it just so effectively just ratchets up the tension. And because they're going to win, right? It's Star Trek, and it's a season finale.
Right,
of course they're going to win at the end of the day. But truly effective storytelling in that situation is how do you make the audience feel the tension of the characters, even though they know what's going to happen. And that scene does it so effectively in everything that's going on and the cutting in and out. And as you say, I mean, any episode that ends with Archer running down a catwalk with it exploding around him in slow motion, like just what an amazing, iconic shot from this show to round out what was an amazing, iconic season of television from Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, no doubt. I full credit to Connor Trenier to give him a shout out that when the way he acts that and he says, "I'm telling you, I got this," is such a great Connor Trenier trip line. So super, super good.
Take us to full impulse. Get us out of here.
Wait a minute, I'm almost there.
You don't have a minute, Commander.
Then give me 10 seconds, I'm telling you I've got it.
That's it. Time's up.
It sure is.
Okay, let's go to round 2. Alex this time. What do you got?
All right. 5-word summary. Disengage the laser fusion initiator. # rearrange those isolinear rods. Fire those defiant torpedoes. It is Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 7, Civil Defense.
Yay!
I won't say too much more about this, but like, just to reiterate, just that you've got, on one hand, you've got Sisko. He is pulling out isolinear rods and moving around. His like hands are moving all over this giant console that's kind of, sort of floor length. And meanwhile, you've got, Miles O'Brien passed out in this Jeffries tube that's full of fire, and Jake Sisko comes and saves him. Like, what a classic buzzer beater to end a classically amazing episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, no doubt. Amazing. Abby, any last second, any additions on Civil Defense?
We briefly touched on it when we were talking about it before, but there's also just that tiny little pause before Sisko goes in, where he has that moment with Jake, which just pulls at you too. And as a parent myself, I just think to myself, that would really happen. And the relationship between Jake and Sisko is always such a delight. And just to have them pause in the middle of this nonstop episode, to have that moment is very real and really makes the stakes feel that much higher.
No doubt. And again, Avery Brooks and those isolinear chips. Incredible. Okay, Abby, how about you? What's your number 2 pick?
All right, number 2, # tricking myself is really difficult. And this is Voyager, Season 2, Episode 17, Dreadnought.
Oh,
and
yes.
This is the instant I got my topic. This was the episode I thought of, because ever since I watched it the first time, I think about how this whole episode, you think, all right, it's B'Elanna trying to trick herself from a few years ago, and she's thought of every contingency, and now she has to figure out how to go back and stop Dreadnought, this horrible missile, from destroying a planet that it mistakenly thinks is actually a Cardassian base. But the ending is so great because Janeway is willing to sacrifice herself and Voyager to blow up Dreadnought before it hits the planet. So you have these two things going on at once, as the life support is off in Dreadnought and B'Elanna is gasping for air with the phaser trying to cut through the reactor core, and Janeway's at an auto-destruct countdown, and they're back and forthing between the two, and they save it with just seconds to spare. I've always liked seeing those two women both ready to give their lives to save innocent people, and they just barely get out of it.
Warning, self-destruct sequence has been initiated. Warp core overload in 2 minutes.
Containment field integrity at 20% and falling. Perhaps your Delta Quadrant hypothesis deserves further consideration.
Nice try. Who would have thought 2 years ago, after all those weeks we spent together perfecting your program, that we'd end up out here trying to kill each other.
Probability assessment did not anticipate this outcome.
The missile's containment field is collapsing.
Beam her back now. Hang on.
Warning. Self-destruct sequence has been initiated. Warp core overload in 1 minute.
Computer, terminate self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Confirmed. Sequence terminated.
So this one has always been a favorite of mine and really did a lot to build B'Elanna's character and show you just how smart she is early in the run of Voyager.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is season 2, right? Yeah.
Season 2, yes.
Probability assessment indicates that this pick is awesome, as Dreadnought might say. I love this pick. Such a great, underrated Voyager episode, and total buzzer beater in terms of saving the Rakosan planet, whatever it was called. Love that moment. Absolutely love this pick. Alex, what's your take on Dreadnought?
I mean, what more could you ask for? Roxanne Dawson versus Roxanne Dawson, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it's so effectively done. You know, she plays B'Elanna and she plays the sort of, you know, Cardassian computer very differently, to the point that you really do feel like they're two separate characters, even though they're voiced by the same person. You know, that's a rare skill, and really, you know, one of the only other actors on Voyager who managed to accomplish it is Bob Picardo. And if you're in the same league as Bob Picardo, you're in pretty good company.
Very true.
Yeah, this episode it should be mentioned more. And it's also like a little bit like Civil Defense. It's one of those kind of Rube Goldberg ones where different layers where they keep stepping into it and having one more block pop up. I love it. Okay, let's close out round 2 with my 5 words and a hashtag. Epic gamble ends Spock's first command. Hashtag. There are always alternatives. And of course, one of my favorite all-time episodes from TOS, the Galileo 7, season 1. And it's Spock jettisoning the fuel at the very end of this episode that ignites the Galileo 7 so it can light a flare and be seen by the Enterprise, and the whole crew gets beamed out from the Murasaki 312 at the last second. It's just one of my favorite moments in Trek history. I love the tension and the whole writing and the solution for Spock firing off. Basically they're thinking, okay, well, we're going to fly around, and if we get seen, we'll land. But Spock says, nah, I'm just going to fire this flare, and then either they see us in the next 6 minutes or we're just going to burn up in the atmosphere. And of course, McCoy and Scotty and everyone's looking at him like, what are you doing? It's such a human thing to do. And I'm going to tell you, I rewatched this episode this weekend, and I watched this decision in kind of with a little bit of a new perspective, having seen Spock in Discovery season 2. And it kind of made me think, when Spock was just sitting there staring, emptied, and there's just these really quiet moments where after he's done it and he's just contemplating, like, what have I done? Is it the right choice? Was it human? Was it too much of a gamble? But I was just sitting there thinking, man, he could be thinking about Michael right there, because that's the kind of thing that she would have taught him and influenced him on in making a decision like that. And it really was a cool kind of thought to see that moment that I've lived with for 50 years in a different way. So I love this episode, one of my all-time favorites. And it was one of my top 5 scenes in a shuttlecraft as well. Alex, what's your take on Galileo 7 and Spock?
I don't think this is Star Trek's first buzzer beater, because Naked Time came before it, but I think it must have been one of Star Trek's first buzzer beaters. So, yeah. I mean, it holds a special place, and should hold a special place in anybody's heart just for that reason alone. Not least because it's a great episode with lots of, great kind of Spock McCoy dynamics, which is one of my favorite relationships on the show as a whole.
Yep.
Spock in command, it's one of the first times you see that happen, and you start to get a sense of who this guy really is, and, and what makes him tick, particularly when he's in that sort of leadership role and not just in the supporting role of offering the advice that may or may not get taken. This is a great pick. I love it.
There are always alternatives, a classic line. Abby, what's your take on the Galileo 7?
That's a fantastic pick. And when I was young, I watched all of TOS out of order, which was a little disorienting at times. So episodes that really stick in my mind stick there for a reason. And I completely agree with you, Jim, when you say Spock fires that flare and then he gets so quiet. That is what stood out for me in this episode when I watched it. And that's what makes it so powerful to me. And I really liked your connection with how he could be thinking about Michael now. And I need to go back and rewatch this one now with that in mind, because I think what a cool thing to retcon now. I love it. It was a pretty cool retcon. I didn't go into it thinking about it, but as I'm watching, I'm like, oh man, that really fits with the contemplative way he would have been thinking about his past and his history, knowing he's dying in a few minutes and hasn't been able to talk about her. So pretty cool. Okay, let's go to round one. Alex, close it out. What's your number one pick?
All right, 5-word summary. Time's up. It sure is. Hashtag goodbye, sphere builders.
Oh, man.
Fire those defiant torpedoes one more time. It is Star Trek Enterprise Season 3, Episode 24, 0 Hour, and there was no way I wasn't picking this. When I first started thinking about this episode, I was thinking about the Arch Catwalk moment, and then I was thinking, but for me, same as you, Jim, I sort of lasered in on the Trip Phlox dynamic and they've only got 15 minutes and they just need a little more time. I mean, just such a perfect way to end this overall season. That was, it's a sort of a darker season in some ways, but had such a Star Trek-y ending because it was all about cooperation and overcoming prejudice and overcoming misconceptions of people, but then just ending it on just a pure, propulsive, action-packed thriller of an episode that is a true Star Trek buzzer beater.
Yeah, I'm impressed you picked the Trip moment, too, because going into I thought about this one, and then I looked at it, and I was thinking Archer, and of course the blowing up the weapon, but then this moment just stood out. It really, again, Connor Tenier, so good in this moment. Abby, how about you? Any final comments on 0 Hour?
I just think that it's difficult for one episode to wrap up a season-long arc and at the same time leave you with a cliffhanger. Yeah. And even though the cliffhanger wasn't the buzzer beater, this episode did both. And it was phenomenal because you felt immensely satisfied with the way that everything with the Xindi and the weapon and the spheres had wrapped up. But then you also went, I have to wait all summer. What? So it's just a wonderful piece of Star Trek. And I remember that being a long summer.
Yep. And let's give a shout out to Snap Trek right now. If you want to hear more about that particular topic, go listen to the Snap Trek comparison that Alex appeared on with the 0 Hour and Such Sweet Sorrow, which was two bizarrely linked up episodes that have a lot of connections that you wouldn't really think did. So, okay, let's close out round one. Abby, what's your number one pick?
I am surprised nobody picked this one because this was the one I was sure had torpedoes. So maybe you'll have it too, Jim. But my hashtag is Put the Borg to Sleep. And it's TNG Season 4, Episode 1, Best of Both Worlds, Part 2. And speaking of really long summers, that was a really long summer waiting for the end of this episode. And then I was really young when this happened, and I just remember sitting there on the edge of my seat. Picard is still all Borged up. He's clutching Data. Crusher's insisting that he's exhausted. The Borg are about to do everything, and you're like, oh my God, maybe they actually are going to do something drastic here at the beginning of a new season. And they put him to sleep. Again, this is a way that there was no violence in this. They didn't have to blow anything up. They found the back way, the little chink in the armor, and just put him to sleep. And it was absolutely perfect and only something that Star Trek could have done. And it's just one of those episodes that it's always on the best of lists because it really is the best.
I did consider this as a buzzer beater moment. It's not my pick, but I love, it was so much drama and tension building up right there. And I love, my favorite part about this as a buzzer beater is when they send Shelby and I can't remember who else, but they send the away team to the ship to kind of check on it and see what's going on. They're like, and they see everything happening and they're like, well, let's regenerate. Okay, get over here. We're getting out of here. And I just love that moment. Super exciting. I sometimes Best of Both Worlds Part 2 gets slagged off a little bit, and I don't understand why, because it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and the part one, the cliffhanger is way up there on cliffhangers.
Of course.
But part two, again, such a wonderful resolution. Because sometimes you have those cliffhangers and then it doesn't really wrap up in a way you feel satisfied, and this one did.
For sure. Alex, what's your take on Best of Both Worlds Part 2?
And they were all about to kill themselves. I mean,
Right.
that was it was either they figured out a way to use Picard to stop the Borg, or the Enterprise was just going to slam itself into the cube and try and take it out that way.
Yeah.
And that the gravity of that decision for Riker, who's been captain for all of 15 minutes at that point, making the decision to potentially end the lives of 1,200 people, including children. And then there's that amazing just that quick shot of when Riker tells Wesley to program in a collision course with the ship, and Wesley's like, wait, am I really going to do this? Am I really going to go through with this? There's just so much happening in just that really short amount of time. And ultimately they think their way out of the problem rather than destroy themselves way out of the problem. But it just, again, in terms of building up that tension towards an end that you probably know is going to happen, right? Patrick Stewart's back on the show, so that means that Picard's going to find a way out of this, and they're not going to destroy the ship at the end of the episode. It's still so effective in bringing you right up to the edge.
Yeah, that moment where I love a good comm system buzzer beater where Riker's about to say engage, take us into the ship, and it's like beep beep. Hold on, hold that thought.
Borg cutting beam activated.
Mr. Crusher? And data to bridge. Stand by.
Stand by. All stations.
I am attempting to penetrate the Borg regenerative subcommand path. It is a low-priority system and may be accessible.
Warning. Outer hull breach.
Sir, shall I execute evacuation sequence?
Negative, Mr. Worf. Mr. Data, your final report.
Stand by.
I can't, Mr. Data.
Warning. Inner hull failure imminent on decks 23, 24, and 25. Decompression danger.
Mr. Data, what the hell happened?
I successfully planted a command into the Borg collective consciousness. It misdirected them to believe it was time to regenerate. In effect, I put them all to sleep.
All right, let's close out this topic with my number one pick. Another one that I thought of right away. It's one of my favorite underrated TNG episodes. It is an absolute double countdown buzzer beater. I love this. 5 words and a hashtag. Not, I think today, Commander. Hashtag double alien buzzer beater. It is Contagion from TNG Season 2. Ooh. And there is a double alien computer countdown at the end of this episode that is just super awesome. Again, super underrated episode. So I love the open with the Yamato being destroyed and the great mystery of the Iconians and all the dramatic tension with the Romulans and the Galaxy class kind of faltering. It's just so good. But ultimately, I picked it because of this double alien countdown that takes place at the end of all this drama. So you've got Picard and Worf and Data on this Iconian station right before it explodes, and so Worf and Data are gone, but Picard is there, and you hear this Iconian language counting down, basically that they're going to blow up the station by closing the shuttle bay doors and just kind of launching and whatever. They're going to blow it up, and there's this amazing countdown, but he runs out of time. He steps through the window, through the Iconian gateway, onto a Romulan ship, and guess what you hear in the background? A Romulan auto-destruct countdown that's happening now in the Romulan language, and their ship's about to explode. And that's when the Romulan commander says, well, at least you're going to die with us. And Picard says, not, I think, today, Commander. And then O'Brien beams him off, and they, of course, send over the info to save the Romulan ship. But I love those two alien countdowns for Picard, kind of the double buzzer beater escape. And then just to throw in a triple buzzer beater bonus, we've got Geordi in the turbo lift when he's racing up to the bridge because he can't signal him on the comm system, and he just says, "Destroy the probe!" as the turbo lift doors open, and they fire the probe right before it. Another great buzzer beater. This episode, 3 buzzer beaters in one. Abby, what's your take on Contagion?
Yeah, this was on my secondary systems too for pretty much the same reasons. And the only reason I took it off is because I didn't want to have such a TNG heavy list. But you could have done 3 shows about TNG buzzer beaters.
Seriously.
It is so much fun because Picard leaves the planet through the gateway with one buzzer beater and steps directly into the next one, which is so much fun. So this is a great episode, and I feel like it doesn't get enough love because it's got a lot of cool parts that all come together at the end.
Totally agree. Great, cool mystery. Alex, Contagion.
I love this episode. It's one of my favorites of season 2 of The Next Generation. It's just so big and, as Abby said, fun. And it has these great buzzer beaters. I mean, Geordi getting tossed out of the turbo lift is just it's just such a fun moment shot stunt. This is a great episode. I love it.
It really is. I'm definitely going to play those Iconian and Romulan countdowns for everybody to enjoy.
Perfect.
All systems functioning.
Lock on the captain. Bring him back.
Scanning, sir. Got him.
Standard, yes. Standard, say. Standard, go. Standard, air. Standard, east. Standard, floor. Standard, monster.
Set the 3 powers to contact. Set the 3 powers to contact. Set the 3 powers.
I've lost him. Damn it. Got him, sir. He's on the Romulan ship.
How that? Set the 3 powers. Break them. Set the 3 powers. Set the 3 powers.
You did this. You sabotaged my ship.
Oh no.
I cannot deactivate the auto-destruct. But at least I have the satisfaction that you will die with us.
Not, I think, today, Commander.
Okay, let's get some secondary systems picks in here because I got a bunch.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Alex, rattle off a few. I keep going out of order. I think it's the A's.
It's the alphabetical thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Okay, Alex, secondary systems. What do you got?
Okay, so Star Trek Insurrection beaming Picard out of the sonar collector at the last moment.
Good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, and you got the Enterprise sort of comes down on top of it. Undiscovered country, saving the life of the Federation president, Mr. President, and Kirk kind of jumps on him and pulls him down just as the shot goes off. Decompressed main shuttle bay, cause and effect. Classic buzzer beater.
Oh yeah.
Stopping the Bashir Changeling in is that by Inferno's Light? At the very end of the episode, right before he's about to blow up the runabout, and he looks up, and then the Defiant appears over the top of them. If we don't go to warp, there won't be a system left. Perfect. That's so good. Timeless, sending the phase corrections to save Voyager in the past right before the Delta Flyer explodes. Another TNG Season 2 episode, just because it's an iconic kind of line. I do indeed concur wholeheartedly.
Yes.
It's on my secondary systems, too.
That was my toughest cut. I really wanted to include that. So.
Yep.
10 seconds to auto-destruct.
Captain. Abort. Auto-destruct sequence.
Riker William T., do you concur?
Yes, absolutely. I do indeed concur wholeheartedly.
Auto-destruct. Cancelled.
Simple yes would have sufficed, number one. I didn't want there to be any chance of misunderstanding. Of course.
And then lastly, Shuttle Pod 1 from Enterprise, them running out of air and making the decision to, basically blow up as much stuff as they could just to signal get the attention of the Enterprise so they get there faster.
So many great buzzer beaters.
Good list.
Yeah, that was amazing. I somehow forgot about Timeless, and I think I would have picked that because that is an absolute computer countdown buzzer beater. Abby, how about you?
If I would have had time travel, that would have been on my list too.
For sure.
And I had a ton of secondary systems, but cut them down too. So I have Wesley's repulsor beam and TNG's Naked Now.
Oh, yeah.
Partly because I, again, watched a lot of these out of order being young when they were airing. So it didn't seem as crazy for me because it wasn't the second episode. And a repulsor beam is a really good idea. We should have seen come back in more episodes. I also had Non saving Burnham from having to kill Arium and Project Daedalus in Discovery.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a great one.
That's a perfect one.
Because, yeah, and that was one of my hard cuts because, I mean, we know what would have happened with the sphere data going through Arium, and Burnham just was having such a hard time, and Non hitting that button and ejecting her was the last second save. So
yeah, because Burnham really couldn't do it, and Non had to do it. That was amazing. Yeah, great pick.
Yeah, and then I have Picard climbing the wall in 10 forward to escape the Baryon sweep in TNG Starship Mine. But I felt like I couldn't quite include that one because he didn't actually do anything besides call them and go, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. But that image of him climbing the wall is forever burned into my brain.
It didn't fit my Prime Directive because of that. It wasn't really a computer countdown, but that is an absolute buzzer beater because you could see the Baryon sweep, inches away from him. So cool. Great pick.
And then I have O'Brien's friendship is what really saves Bashir when they're both in Sloane's mind in DS9's Extreme Measures. I mean, they're about to get trapped in there and not be able to leave with the information that they need. And it's really the fact that they have this strong relationship that pulls Bashir away and saves them from being eternally sucked into Sloane's mind as he
that's cool.
dies.
Yeah. Another cool pick.
Yeah, that one was a hard cut for me too, but I felt like since it was in somebody's head, it wasn't, it was a buzzer beater, but not quite with my Prime Directive.
Yep.
And then my last one was Data beaming Picard out at the end of Nemesis, because that's just that split second. He slaps it on, he's gone, and
goodbye.
You lose one beloved friend, but saved another.
Another literal buzzer beater. That's a really good one. It's almost like that was a little buzzer he put on him to beam him out.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, so I'm not sure if you said the name of the episode, but Where Silence Has Lease was the one with the classic Riker line.
Yes, that's right.
When the auto-destruct is, when Picard won't quite cancel it because he's not sure what Nagilum's up to, and Picard and Riker has his classic line. So that was on my list. I had Extreme Risk. You had Extreme Measure. I had Extreme Risk because I liked B'Elanna's kind of buzzer beater moment of saving the Delta Flyer with her makeshift force field. I had also Gravity. I think I was really tempted to pick this because it's a real curious buzzer beater because you've got the two different timelines where Voyager is counting down 10 seconds, intercut between like 2 days of action between Paris and Tuvok. So they show Voyager like 10, 9, and then they have Paris and Tuvok and Nos saying, all right, we have 1 day to get to the Voyager transport coordinates, and they're fighting some guys, and then they cut back to Voyager 5, 4, and it really clever the way they did that one. I also had I thought of Deadlock. It didn't quite fit, but I liked the idea of the reverse buzzer beater where the second Voyager destroys their ship and the Vidians to save the other Voyager. I had Starship Mine. I have to mention, so people can stop screaming at their podcast players right now, of course, the Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
And the multiple buzzer beaters there related to Spock's death and Khan's death. And my special shout out here at the end, it's the anti-buzzer beater, the just missed buzzer beater, Rom trying to save the self-replicating minds.
Yeah,
and
I thought of this one too. Yeah.
In Sacrifice of Angels, but he was just a half second short.
But it is a buzzer beater when Sisko convinces the prophets to get rid of the Dominion fleet inside the wormhole, because if he hadn't stopped them right then, that would have been it.
Of course. But I just like that moment where it's like Rob's like, I did it. Yes. It's like, oh, just
fire! Done!
Uh-oh.
What is it?
We were too late.
Classic. All right, there are so many. I can't wait to start getting lists from people because I think there's going to be a lot that didn't get mentioned. Fantastic topic. Great conversation. Love all these deep cuts that we got to get into here, but now it's time to get into our regeneration cycle and go through some stats and a quick recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Alex, break down your top 5 buzzer beaters.
Auto-destruct in 5 minutes.
Number 5, Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 3, Episode 2, The Ensigns of Command. Number 4, Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 10, Et in Arcadia Ego, Part 2. Number 3, Star Trek Voyager, Season 3, Episode 1, Basics, Part 2. Number 2, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 7, Civil Defense. And number 1, Star Trek Enterprise, Season 3, Episode 24, 0 Hour.
And true to your word, you had 1 from TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, and Picard. Abby, how about you? Break down your 5.
All right, number 5 was TNG Season 4, Episode 5, Remember Me. Number 4, DS9 Season 3, Episode 7, Civil Defense. Number 3, the movie Star Trek Generations with the Kirk part.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Voyager Season 2, Episode 17, Dreadnought. And number 1, TNG Season 4, Episode 1, Best of Both Worlds, Part 2.
Awesome. So you had 1 each from Deep Space Nine and Voyager and 3 from TNG. And for my list, my round 5 was Terra Prime from Star Trek Enterprise. My number 4 pick was We'll Always Have Paris from The Next Generation. My super round pick, number 3, was 0 Hour from Enterprise. Number 2, the classic TOS episode, the Galileo 7. And my number 1 pick was Contagion from TNG with the double alien countdown. So a few statistics here. We had 2 duplicates. We had, the best I could count, we had about 5 computer countdowns. I thought there might be more of those. So a little surprising there. But the series breakdown, there was no picks from Discovery, Short Treks, Kelvin Timeline, and there was 1 movie. And then the breakdown was 1 from Picard, 2 from Deep Space Nine and Voyager, 3 each from Enterprise. 1 from TOS as well. And then leading the way was 6 from TNG. So TNG was definitely, I could see that kind of that was the era for a lot of, kind of makes sense to be a lot of buzzer beaters.
Could have done a whole list just on TNG.
Just TNG for sure. I had so many more. Okay, let's get into, guess what's happened? We've entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we're going back to episode 84 in our top 5 Odo episodes, which of course was a super popular episode and got a lot of great listens, starting with this one from Adam Sanders, who is at MetsFan1701 and was recently on an episode of TrekRanks. So he basically had 5 different takes on Odo. And I really like the way he approached this. He had fun Odo, hashtag look it up, but do it in the stands from Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite. He had romantic Odo, hashtag kiss right here from His Way. Tortured Odo, hashtag I want to go home from the Dias cast. He had complete Odo, hashtag looks good in the tuxedo, what you leave behind. Oh, that's nice.
Classic.
And then compassionate Odo, hashtag I give you my blessing from treachery, faith, and the great river. So that's a super awesome way to look at it. And then we got this great list from Chris at Shelf Nerds, always with his great list. He had a full 5 words and a hashtag. Odo deals with childhood trauma, hashtag flying free, the begotten. Number 4, he had reminds us Odo's gray morality, the 8,000 children of time. Oh, the 8,000. Ooh, brutal, going dark. Tickling the Ivories with Vic, hashtag promenade smooches from his way. The morphing politics of Earth, hashtag phasered Homefront and Paradise Lost. And Odo wrestles with his guilt, hashtag collaborator from Things Past. I really like that list. It's a good
That was a great list.
It's really, really good. A lot of deep thought on that one. Okay, and we're going to do another amazing alliterative list from Rich Masters at Masters Rich on Twitter. This one is so good. He had like 7 on here. Jeez, maybe I won't read them all. But Gumshoe God gains getaway genuflection. Hashtag why be a god if there's no one to worship you? Treachery, faith in the great river. Constable concludes Cardassian cold case. Hashtag Cardassian middleman in necessary evil. Future founder fixes friend's fate. Hashtag arithmetic. I'm not even sure what that means from Children of Time. Bucket list Bobby bags Betazoid Bond. Hashtag sacred bucket of Ricks in the Forsaken. That's really good.
That's awesome.
Smug shapeshifter schools surly security. Hashtag Klingon pride before a fall in bar association. That's another deep cut. Deluded detective dispatches Ducat's discipline. Hashtag lax thrax from Things Past. And reluctant referee refuses rules relaxation. Hashtag you're out of here. Take me out to the hall suite. All right, that's a lot, but
the man is talented.
Yeah, those are amazing. Reluctant referee refuses rules relaxation. That's about as well as you can say it. All right, once again, those picks more than enough to get us out of this week's Temporal Causality Loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you, so put together your own list of top 5 buzzer beaters or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527 at 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks.
Auto-destruct in 2 minutes.
And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are going back to my favorite TrekRanks series. We seem to hit on this every 10 or 15 episodes or so. I think this will be maybe the 8th or 9th time we're doing it. It's our Scenes in Trek series. And the next time is a really cool one. We are doing our top 5 scenes on Earth, which is a really cool Star Trek topic when you start thinking about it. So I'm looking forward to this one. So Alex and Abby, if you had to choose one scene on Earth in Star Trek history, off the top of your head, what would it be, Alex?
I think for me, it's got to be the confrontation between Sisko and his father in Paradise Lost when he cuts himself because he's refusing to take the blood test. And they have this just incredible conversation about civil rights and privacy. And it is just a conversation that has resonated down the ages from that point.
Fantastic pick.
That's a deep, deep cut. I love it. Amazing moment. Abby, how about you?
Oh, that's hard because I thought of like 6 right away. But I think one that sticks out to me is in TNG, Season 4, Episode 2, Family, where Jean-Luc and Robert back on the Vineyard get into that fight and finally air some of their grievances with each other after decades. And they fall in the mud and just let it all out. And you see Picard break down about what he's just been through with the Borg. And then they go back and drink a whole lot of wine and make a mess in the house for poor Marie.
Oh, man, that is an awesome pick, too. I think definitely family is going to get a lot of attention for this topic. I can't wait to jump into that one. All right. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to our old friend Alexander Perry and our new friend Abby Sommer. Great to have you guys on the show. Any final Trek subspace communications you guys want to relay before we depart, Alex?
Thank you so much for having me, Jim. I always love being on TrekRanks.
Love having you, buddy. Abby, hope the first TrekRanks experience was a good one.
Oh, this was delightful. Definitely one of the highlights of my month for sure. And anytime, this was time well spent and homework I enjoyed.
TrekRanks homework is the best homework, no doubt about it.
Computer, in auto-destruct sequence, authorization Cisco Omega-17 aboard.
This is Kira Nerys, First Officer. I concur.
Auto-destruct sequence aborted.
All right, I want to thank everyone for engaging with us again here on episode 92 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Tractor beam ready, sir.
Jordy, destroy the probe, sir, quickly!
Wolf, target phases.
Phases locked on target.
Fire!
Welcome to the bridge, Mr. LaForge.
Thank you, sir. If that thing hadn't managed to scan us, we never would have had any chance of saving the Enterprise.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
The warp containment field is failing!
Warp core breach in 30 seconds.
Try stabilizing the antimatter flow. The control linkage is down.
Warning. Warp core breach a lot sooner than you think.
We've got to get someone inside the warp core. Try to eject it manually. No one could survive the current level of plasma radiation. The doctor.
This isn't real, is it?
Doc, you're the only one who can help us.
Warning. Last chance to be a hero, Doctor. Get going.